Hello, beautiful MILFs, and welcome back to another episode of the MILFs Who Pivot podcast, where the term MILF is short for Money Making Independent Lady Friends. I'm your host, Bianca Terry, and each week I'll either be interviewing or reading about amazing women who have pivoted in life to pursue their wildest dreams and wealth from a MILF's perspective. This podcast aims to motivate and encourage other MILFs to boldly explore uncharted paths towards a fresh and fabulous leveled up life. Hello, everyone. Today's guest is Danielle Linneweber. Danielle is the owner of Purposeful Pilates in Minneapolis, Minnesota. She made her career pivot 10 years ago when she left her 15-year career in corporate communications to become a Pilates instructor. She changed careers because she was burnt out by the corporate grind and was determined to find a job where she could help people and feel good about what she had accomplished at the end of each day. Danielle's personal battle with chronic pain led her to doing Pilates. She was able to conquer her pain with the help of Pilates, so she decided to get her instructor certification so that she could help others address their pain issues using the same methods that helped her. During the 2020 pandemic, Danielle left the gym chain she'd been with for 6 years and branched out on her own. At the height of the pandemic, business was booming, so she opened her own studio. She's 2.5 years into being a studio owner, and her business continues to thrive. She's here to tell us more about her career change and the many unique choices she's made in life, including not having children, that led her to being a successful entrepreneur. What a bio. Danielle, welcome to the show. It's so nice to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Let's talk about life before your pivot. Who were you? What life paths have you taken? Those kinds of things.
Yeah. So I started out in corporate communication. So I have a bachelor's in mass communication and a master's in strategic communication that I got in 2010, actually. And I spent 15 years working in corporate communications and health and finance, basically kind of jumping back and forth between healthcare companies and then major Ameriprise and big Fortune 500 companies that were finance related. And I did that for so long, and I got this master's degree thinking, if I keep doing these things, I'm going to make more money, and I'm going to finally do the things and get the things that I want that's going to make me actually happy in these jobs. And turns out it didn't. So I just kind of reached my breaking point. I just felt like every time I went to work, I was frustrated. I just went there with the mission to get through the day, get through my to-do list, and get home. And I wasn't getting any joy out of it. I was just burnt out and tired, and I felt like there had to be a better way because I didn't want to spend the next 30 years sitting in a cube working for a big company where I felt like I wasn't making a difference in the bigger picture, I guess. So
You knew early on that you wanted to fulfill a higher purpose. You wanted to make a difference in some sort of way. When you were working in corporate, is that when your back pain started?
Sort of. It started early on, about 10 years before I made this change. I had ran a half marathon and my body just kind of fell apart. And I'd always been an athlete and had been a runner. I played volleyball. You name it, played softball. I did everything. And that half marathon broke me and caused this just cascade of chronic pain issues with my back, my knee, and my shoulder. And at the time, yes, I was working in corporate communications and I was, sitting at a desk all day, which was exacerbating things. I was the weirdo sitting on the big, exercise ball at my desk trying to,
I remember those.
Yeah. So I was doing all the things. And so, that dragged on for, from 25 to 35. And right around that 34, 35 mark is where I was like, you know what? There's got to be something better. And that's how it kind of, I had started doing Pilates around that time, around 35. And it
And
really,
how were you introduced to Pilates? And you know what? Let's back up a little bit because funny enough, not everyone even knows what Pilates is. So, can you just briefly explain what the Pilates method is and what it does to your body? And then we can continue with how you got introduced to Pilates.
yeah. So Pilates is all about core strength, flexibility, uh, balance, posture, and more importantly, strengthening your deep internal stabilizer muscles by using kind of a mind body
Sounds
connection
amazing.
here. So yeah, right. So
Okay.
for me, I had gone to physical therapy for years, trying to, and all the things. I had tried everything to fix this chronic pain, and every PT that I saw was like, you need more core strength, and you need your certain muscles to do more work, mainly my butt and my hamstrings. And they kept trying to get me to connect
Okay.
and figure out how to find all these, and I did everything they told me. I wanted to get back to being active, and it just would not work, and it would not work. Um, and I one day was at the gym, one of the big gym chains here, and all I could do at that point, my doctors would only allow me to walk on the treadmill, and that was really it. They'd cut me off of everything, and I just was so frustrated. I walked up to a trainer at the club and said, "What can I do? This is my story. What can I do that's not going to hurt me?" And they're like, "You need to go to Pilates immediately." And I had done Pilates because you can do it on a mat. And, back in the early 2000s, the craze kind of took off, and there were DVDs and all these, fancy Pilates instructors who taught DVD Pilates. And I had done that and it was fine. But I'd never done this with these machines back here behind me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so at that club is where I started doing the reformer Pilates. And that's where everything changed for me, where I finally understood how beneficial it was and how to actually build my core strength and how to find the mind body connection to make those muscles fire that I just was not able to find in my physical therapy.
Wow. And how long did you completely heal from the back pain or were you able to manage it better?
I'm completely free of it. Um, it was pretty amazing, and with Pilates too, I was able to ease into the movement without the fear of getting hurt. So it wasn't like a hit workout where I was just going to get destroyed and have no one paying attention to me, and no kind of being held with kid gloves to an extent. So Pilates was really a a a quiet and safe entry point into working out again and getting over all the fear that the doctors had put into me of that I was going to get hurt and that I shouldn't be doing these things. And at 35 I was like, I am not going to be a couch potato. I refuse. And so it was just kind of my tenacity of like keep asking questions and trying to figure it out is how I ended up there and now here.
Good. So you're taking the classes, you're feeling much better, and you're at this point you're teaching at the gym also, right?
Well,
Teaching at the gym.
sort of. I started out as a student and I did that for about a year and a half. And during that time was where I was hitting my breaking point at my corporate job. And I had hired a life coach at the time to help me try to figure out what to do next. And I had a handful of ideas in my head, but I just, one, it seemed like it was impossible. Like there's no way I can leave what I've built here for 15 years and then I'm good at it and all that and leave behind a 6-figure job and who knows what, like for what. Um, and so I hired this life coach while I was doing Pilates lessons, and it all just kind of kept shifting in that direction. That I had entertained the idea of being a personal trainer way back in the day, like 15 years before this, when I was in perfect health. And I actually had gotten my certification like through a weekend program and was working at a smaller gym chain here on the weekends as a second job. But I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't have enough training. And then I got hurt running that half marathon. And so it was like, well, I guess that's it.
Yeah.
So I think I've always known in the back of my mind that physical activity has always been important to me. I've always played sports, and
Mhm.
I knew that I wanted to contribute in some way. And then it just so happened that I
Yeah.
think I had to go through all this chronic pain in order to get me to the thing that can actually help people and where I can help people based on my own experience. So it all just kind of worked
Right.
itself, but it was a roundabout way of getting.
Right. It also sounds like it was a natural progression for you. And you mentioned something that I thought was really interesting, that you hired a life coach. So,
Yeah,
what was the life coach's role in guiding you towards your business and fitness?
right.
Like, help us understand how important was a life coach. And it's a good point I wanted to bring up to our listeners. You don't have to have everything figured out. You know, you can hire experts, or get around experts in a certain field so that you get the knowledge that you need in addition to research. But
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that. Life coach, that's a great idea. So yeah, just let me know what the life coach's role was during that process.
Yeah, she was crucial, honestly. For me, I needed kind of an unbiased opinion and guide through all this. And I didn't really even know where to start. I just knew, bottom line, I wanted to help people. I wanted to do something where at the end of the day, I went home feeling like I had done something good, and that I could be happy with what I was doing every day. And so when I hired her, she kind of took me back to the basics of like, well, what did you like to do as a child? What did you like to do growing up? So it kind of is like this, almost like this inner child work that at the time, now that's the buzzword. And now I can see that's what she was really doing with me and leading me to. And now that it's more a buzzword thing and more work I've been doing on myself, I'm like, oh, that's what was going on. And so it started with that. It started with that, and then just kind of networking in these different areas that I was thinking about pursuing. So I had thought about being a consultant, have my own consulting company doing communications for nonprofits. So at least I felt like I was working for businesses that actually needed my help, and I had been doing that on the side anyway. Um, Things like that, and I needed her to help me pay attention to the signs and the things that were happening in front of me and just being like, that's a green light. She used that term a lot. There's green lights all around. That is the direction you should be pursuing. And, I would be like, well, but wait, I'm in this, I've got a good paying job. Uh, Everything's going well. I'm not bad at this. Like, I felt guilty for wanting to quit and wanting something different because I'm like, a
Right.
lot of people would be happy to be in this position. Why can't I be happy doing this? And she was very helpful in guiding me and be like, because that's not what you are meant to do. And you're trying to really listen to yourself and take a different path. And so mainly she talked me off the ledge on a weekly basis for a few months.
That's good. So you had her in your corner for a few months and
Mhm.
she guided you towards this. Wow.
Yeah.
Um, I like that. Life coach. I wasn't exactly sure what the job of a life coach was. I thought maybe, okay, it's someone that can help you get your life in order, um, which is, I guess, a little bit of what she was doing with you and helping you think about how to pivot. So, talk to us about that. What happened next and the timeline. Was this during COVID that you hired her, or before? I guess before COVID, you were
It was
still
before.
working.
This was
But yeah,
this was about 11-ish years ago, maybe, yeah, 11
okay,
exactly. Um, and so it took a solid year or so, 9 months to a year for me to figure out this was the direction I was going to go and get my certification. Um, and that that part of it was very scary. Obviously, I was married at the time, so at least I had some dual income there to support me at that time, and we could get by. But I really needed that help of not backing down, because I probably would have been too afraid and would have backed down at a certain point if she hadn't kept telling me to just keep going forward. So, and I think there's life coaches come in all forms, and some are helping you with different aspects of your life. I specifically wanted to focus on the career piece of it. So I think it just depends on what you need and what their focus is. But I needed the career specific focus. So it took about, like I said, 9 months to a year to figure this out, get the certification, quit my job at that big company, and start the new career at the big gym chain where I had started doing Pilates. So it all just kind of came together, but it was terrifying.
I
Yeah.
bet. So, I mean, these were some major decisions you made. Now, let's talk about the point at which, you quit, um, COVID happened, and you started building your clientele from home. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. So backtrack a little bit. So when I quit and I started at the gym, uh, that was 10 years ago. So, and I was at the gym for 6 years. Um, and that's where I built a good chunk of my clientele there. It took me about a year and a half to build confidence in my skill set. And, I went from a paycheck, regular paycheck job to an all commission job. I never sold a thing in my life. There's no way you could have told me 12 years ago that I would go from that to being one of the top sales, producers at this gym. But I think that obviously was a sign that I was doing the right thing that I'm supposed to be doing, that I was able to do that. But it took me a solid year and a half to really get my footing and get past a lot of the imposter syndrome. I mean,
Hmm. And you put the work in.
yeah.
Yeah.
And, you go from a job that you know how to do and you spent all these years doing to suddenly something completely, a total 180. And you're like, wait, are they going to believe me? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm still figuring this out. And you get a body in front of you to work out and you're like, why is their leg doing that? I didn't learn how to fix that. And so it's just a huge mind game where you have to really work hard to not get into the weeds of like, that I'm not good at this, or that I'm never going to be good at this, or that people aren't going to take me seriously every day for probably that first year and a half. And even sometimes now I have to be like, I know what I'm doing. It's going to work out, etc. So, but it's like a switch flipped at that year and a half mark and everything just took off, and then it just built from there. So, and then COVID hit, after I'd been at that club for 6 years, and I had been thinking about leaving, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. There were some non-compete things floating around that I was afraid to leave. And when COVID hit, it kind of gave me the perfect escape route to leave. My clients could come with me, and uh, also terrifying. Terrifying round. Yeah.
I bet. Wow, loyal clients. So they followed you from your classes inside the gym to
Mhm.
outside during COVID when everything was closed and people were home.
Yes. So
How did you manage that?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't think I have not. I mean, as all of it, none of us have really processed what's happened in the past 4 years, but I really haven't processed how I did that. So basically, I spent a year and a half at the height of COVID. Either I have a 500 square foot apartment that I was teaching virtual sessions out of. So I was teaching privates and classes virtually. I was riding my bike there's a park about a mile from here that I was teaching classes in the park, or I also teach TRX, and I had some TRX straps and would throw them around a tree. I had my favorite tree in the park, and I would work people out doing TRX in the park. And then a
Nice.
woman who I'd never met before had a studio about a mile from here with one of these machines, one reformer. And I reached out to her and said, hey, can I teach privates out of your studio a few days a week? And she said yes. And so I was teaching that too. So I was kind of all over the place. And I went to some clients, I went to their houses or condos. I'm in downtown in Minneapolis, and most of my clients live in the core here. So I basically just hustled my butt off. And wherever people felt safe with me, that's where I would meet them, and worked my way through from June of 2020 until October of 21 is when I opened this studio.
Wow. It's like in the beginning, everything was moving kind of slow and you were trying to figure out your footing and taking classes in the gym, then working in the gym, and then COVID, and then to building your own clientele. And then voila, now you have a studio. That's
Right.
amazing. So you mentioned in either your bio or something that I read about the sacrifice. There were sacrifices in getting up to that point. What were some of those sacrifices? And, tell me about the hustle that you had to put in.
Yeah. I mean, well, in the midst of all of that, so the first year when I started at the gym, the first year in this career switch, I also got divorced, which was my
Mhm.
choice. And so I kind of blew up my whole life in the course of a year or two right there. So between a massive career change and a divorce, I started over completely,
We tend
which
to do
was,
that, don't we? We just blow up our lives.
I mean, yeah, I
We
mean,
get those
because
signs and we know when we need a change, and it's usually massive. So, yeah.
yeah, and I think for me too, it was like I changed careers and really realized how much happier I was doing this, and I didn't want to come home to somebody who just kept sinking my ship, right? Like felt good about what I was doing during the day, and then it would just kind of suck the air out when I came home. And so it all obviously happened for a reason that I needed to start over completely. And I'm not one to obviously uh, sit around and wait for things to get better. So I guess, why not just blow it all up at once? So I did. And in the end, it all has been the best decisions that I could have made, as hard as it was.
Mhm.
Sacrifice wise, I guess it's been a lot of just, uh, I don't know, just having to stay positive as much as I can. Some days, it's harder than others. And, but the thing is, like, I don't have kids, and I made that choice. I don't know. I think I came out of the womb knowing I didn't want kids. Uh, so I don't have to, I don't have that sort of responsibility that to keep me from making a lot of these decisions. And that was part of the driving factor as to why I made these decisions. I didn't have to pay for little Timmy's preschool. I didn't have to be at home. I didn't have to do any of that. And that's also why I was like, I do not want to sit in this cube all day and do stuff that I don't like. Like, I want to do things that make me happy every day. And so the good news is, like, I didn't have to make a lot of sacrifices in that respect, because it's just been me for, the last 10 years, honestly. And I've been able to make the choices that make me happy still. I still was able to keep my social life. I made that a priority, things like that. So I guess the biggest sacrifices are just the exhaustion that comes with it, and the mental load of like, okay, I got here. Now how am I going to get here? And then what's the next step? And just the ups and downs of running a business has been the biggest challenges. But I can't say I've sacrificed a lot. It's just been a lot to absorb and work through.
Absolutely. And were you doing all of this on your own? All of the setting up the business and looking for the studio and getting everything prepared for that? So
Yeah,
you were a one-woman team.
pretty much. Yeah,
Wow.
I do have a massage therapist who works for me. That we had a mutual client who introduced us and was like, you two should talk. And um so we worked a little bit together in terms of picking the space out and all, but then we have completely separate businesses and everything else. So at least I had
Mhm.
a little bit of a partner, but we didn't know each other, and I took a risk with her in terms of like, I don't know, I'm trusting that my client knows best and he knows us well, and that this will be a good thing, but it could have gone really poorly. Luckily it didn't. So I had a little bit of help with that, but overall I had to do all of the work, and in terms of setting up my particular business and figuring all this out, and it's a lot. So yeah, I don't have anybody to bounce things off of, and it's all in here, and that's it.
Amazing. You trusted your gut, you prepared yourself with knowledge, you sought counsel, and you took big risks and made bold decisions and got it done. So kudos to you for that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Fast forward to today, you're running a successful fitness business. What about other areas outside of your career? Have you sort of redesigned or paid more attention to in your life to fit your needs and wants?
Yeah. I mean, um, so I'm a super extrovert, like 1,000% extroverted. And even though I'm here around people all day, every day, I still need more people when I leave here. And I just need all the people. So for me, my own hobbies and things like that are key for keeping myself sane. And I've I guess to some extent, maybe back to your sacrifice question, I guess I have had to sacrifice a little bit in my ability to do all of those social things to some extent. So, for example, I'm a salsa dancer. So, I take lessons a couple times a week, and I go out social dancing on the weekends as much as I can. Um, I play softball in the summers once a week. For me, and I go to a lot of concerts. So live music is my thing. I'm a big music nerd. Those are the things that I am in the moment, and I can't be thinking about this. And that has been really key for me, of just knowing I have to really still stay committed to those things and not let them go by the wayside, because it's my release from being in here all day. And I have to let myself find joy in those things, because it's easy to just get sucked into this and never leave, or go home and just collapse and not take care of myself. So, and those are my self-care rituals of sorts, is just being out and doing the things that bring me joy and keep me from focusing on my to-do list.
It's very important to nurture yourself. Running a business is, you know, full time, full time job,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're going it alone. So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
understand that. Let's talk finances because, as women and especially as we age and being single and unpartnered, how important is it to you to factor in wealth building and or a retirement strategy into your current lifestyle framework?
Yeah. I've been very lucky with how things have played out. I mean, obviously, I worked in the finance industry, and I had a financial advisor that I worked with back in those days, who I'm still with, 15 years later.
Mhm.
And so I've been very diligent about savings from day one, back when I was in my early 20s, where I think I opened a Roth IRA back in the day, and those sorts of things are still relevant for me, and I have a good portfolio at this point. Um, I will say, I've had to make adjustments over the last few years, because my business is still in its infancy. I mean, the studio
Mm.
itself is only 2.5 years in, and I am contributing to a SEP at the moment, as much as I can right now, and that is my main savings at the moment in terms of what I'm contributing to. Uh, it feels like I'm kind of in this weird holding pattern, because I'm waiting for things to shift a little bit and take off more. But at the same time, I have my investment portfolio from all my years, with all my 401ks and everything that have been, you know, uh, adjusted and rolled into other investments, all that good stuff. But
That's
yes,
good. And
yeah,
I imagine that also, and other business owners too, when you're working so long, for a company and you're receiving a match, most companies may give a match and you're contributing a certain amount. When you suddenly shift to operating your own business, and maybe the finances aren't the same in the beginning, you have to make adjustments. So it sounds like, you started early on with the mindset that I need to prepare now and set things aside. So
Yeah.
that's good. I want our listeners to understand, that is definitely a mind shift. And if you don't have it, it's best to start learning about it now and never say that it's too late to start. Always, if you don't know and you haven't started preparing, start preparing, start learning.
Yeah.
Because
Even if it's
that's something I hear a lot is, oh, it's too late now. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. No, you can always do something. So,
right. I think a little goes a long way. And even though right now I'm not contributing as much as I want to be able to do, I'm still trying and still putting some
mhm,
away, um, and to help with my tax burden too. So, it's a constant battle, and there's always that fear that it's going to run out. And like, finding the balance here, it's definitely a major mind game. And if you can, I'm lucky enough that I can have a financial advisor, and that at least when I feel like I need some advice or I'm just not quite sure, I can at least reach out and say, hey, am I on the right track? Do we need to make adjustments? So it's comforting to know that it's not that piece isn't all on me. And
mhm,
I can get help when I need it occasionally. So,
good, good.
yeah.
Another thing you mentioned was that you are a solo traveler,
Mhm.
which I thought was really interesting. I can relate to that. So, have you always traveled solo? I know you were married once. Was your husband ever your travel partner?
Yeah, I mean, the solo thing has been new as of the past couple years, and
Oh, good for you.
yeah, and so that also has been a big self care factor for me, and something I need to do in order to get myself out of here, and go. Otherwise, if I'm anywhere close to the studio, I will still be here. I'm too close to it, so I've got to actually leave the country to get away from it. But so yes, after COVID, or yeah, after that whole thing where we couldn't go anywhere and do anything, I came out of that and just realized I'm not going to sit around and wait on somebody to go with me places. And I've been doing a lot of things beyond even just going to concerts and stuff by myself, which I would never have done a few years ago. It wouldn't have even occurred to me. But I just was like, you know what? I'm not going to sit around and wait. Like, I'm not going to miss this show. And, we learned our lesson that it can just all go away. So I started going to shows by myself. And then I tend to travel over Christmas every year. And, the last few years, I haven't had anybody to go. And most of my friends can't go over that time frame because they've got family stuff. And for me, that's not a priority. So I was like, well, I'm not going to wait. I'm just going to go. So
Yeah,
so 2
I
Christmases.
love that. You see what happens when you decide to make a bold change, all kinds of things open up.
Yeah.
You're doing all kinds of things that you wouldn't have normally have done in the past.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
wonderful. Well, let's move into what I like to call the strawberry round, where I'll ask 5 fun fact questions and you keep your answers short and sweet. And I know we're going to skip the software tool, so that's fine.
Okay.
Number one, name a book that has inspired you tremendously.
It's right here. It's Healing Back Pain, The Mind Body Connection, and it's by Dr. John Sarno. This is the book that I read that led me into Pilates on top of everything else. And it's
Wow.
all about the mind body connection and how pain um, presents itself usually as a result of our emotional, mental health issues. So
Hmm.
perfectionists, we're got anxiety, all these sorts of things, and the brain is very powerful, and it will manifest pain as a way to distract you from your emotions, your anxiety, all of these things. So that book was the first thing that I ever read where I was like, oh, this is why I've been in pain for so long. And it all between that and the Pilates, those two things were the game changers for me.
That's amazing. I will find a link and include it in the show notes to that book. Next question is, Name someone you'd love to have lunch with and why.
Hmm. Uh, well, there's two technically, but Madonna would be one. So she's kind of always been my idol. And I just look up to the fact that, she has been such a trailblazer in the music industry as a female and has made, I mean, just she's still breaking records. She just had like the biggest concert ever in Brazil a couple months ago at 65. I would just be curious to talk to her
Were you
about,
there?
no, but I saw her here. She was here in February. I saw her here in February. So that was amazing. But in general, I just would love to just hear the real stories about what she went through and what the real backstory is on everything and how she still managed to persevere despite still being, mocked for her appearance and, everything else that she's doing. I just find her just to be a huge role model and just a badass. So,
Right. And also everything that people think she shouldn't be doing because of her age, which I
100%.
think is nonsense. So,
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, and the other
do you have,
yeah, one
oh, I had one more. Yeah.
the other person would be Chelsea Handler, who she's a comedian and she used to have her own late
She's
night show.
hilarious.
She's a couple of years older than me, but she's child free as well. And she's one of the few child free role models out there in the celebrity world who is around my age, who I feel like is very adamant about it and is living her best life and showing us that it can be done. Whereas my generation didn't have that 20 years ago. So I feel like she's a really great role model for all the younger folks now. And I wish I would have had that 20 years ago so I could be like, oh, I'm not a weirdo for feeling like this. So
Hmm.
she's just amazing. And I would just like to have a cocktail with her for sure.
Yeah.
And tell her thank you. Just to tell her thank you. That's all.
Do you have a life motto or favorite quote?
I do, but it's very, I mean, it seems very cliche. It's just that life is short and you just don't know what's going to happen. So you need to take advantage of it. And that boils down to my mom passed away from breast cancer 20 years ago. She was only 54. I'm 47. And so, it just proved that you just don't know what's going to happen. And I think that was one of my major motivating factors in all the decisions I've made in the past 20 years is that you just don't know. I'm not going to put off traveling. I'm not going to put off and stay in a career I'm not happy in. I'm not going to stay in relationships that I'm not happy in because I don't know how long I have. So, yeah.
Good for you. And lastly, what's your top self-care ritual? I know you mentioned a
Right.
few, but do you have a favorite?
I mean, dancing is by far my favorite just because there's just so much joy in dance, particularly salsa. The music, no matter how tired or whatever it is, tired, sad, bad mood, the minute I walk in and hear that music, it's like a switch flips and I'm like, oh, I've it all. You just feel joy and you just can't, it's impossible not to. And so that's why I love it so much. So
I agree.
to fit that in on a weekly basis is key for me.
It's definitely good for the soul. I also love salsa.
Yeah.
So,
So
yeah, I'm a salsa girl too.
okay, good.
Do you have any final words for our listeners to take as encouragement or advice to pivot and live life intentionally?
Yeah, I think we are trained to follow the rules and follow society's standards. Like you're going to go to college, you're going to graduate, you're going to get married, you're going to have a kid, you're going to move to the suburbs, you're going to get this job, you're going to get that job, you're going to climb the ladder. It doesn't have to be that way. And I wish more people, and I do believe more people are figuring that out, obviously, with everything that's happened in the last 4 years. And I can't tell you how many people, when I quit that corporate job 10 years ago, I had so many people come up to me and women particularly that were like, you know what, I wish I could do what you're doing. Or, just gave me a lot of props for having the guts to do it. And I didn't quite realize the gravity of it at the time. And now I understand it better. But even still, people will still say that to me now. And I still don't think I understand the risks that I've taken and where I'm at. It just felt like this is what I was supposed to do, but I don't think I fully understand what I've done, and I just want other people to realize that you can do it. It's not going to be easy. And I cry a lot when I leave here some days where I'm like, why have I done this to myself? And then I'm like, oh yeah, because I don't want anyone telling me what to do. So that's why I'm here. And I know I'm doing good things every day, no matter how tired I am, how like crazy the day has been. When I leave here, I know I helped X number of people every single day feel better and be healthy. So that's the bottom line. And so just don't be afraid, take the risks and follow your gut. I mean, honestly, it's that simple. It sounds really silly, but you just have to listen to yourself, and that's key.
But that's the thing. It doesn't sound silly. It's things as simple as that are the truth. You're speaking nothing but the truth.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Danielle. It has been great chatting with you and getting to know you. You
Thank
got me
you. Good.
inspired to want to do Pilates.
Okay, good. All right. Well, I'm glad to hear it. So that's what my.
Absolutely.
All
So,
right.
how can our listeners learn more about you or your business? And whatever links you give me, I'll put them in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on Instagram at Purposeful Pilates in like Minnesota, because that's where I am. So Purposeful Pilates in. And I'm on Facebook just at Purposeful Pilates as well. My website is purposefulpilatesmn.com. And yeah, I follow me on socials. And if you're in Minneapolis and you want to do Pilates, reach out and we'll get you in here to do a consultation and introduce you to it. But that's your starting points.
All right. There you have it. Thank you, Danielle. Nice talking to you. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you, Bianca.
All right. Bye bye. Thank you for tuning in to another exciting episode of the MILFs Who Pivot podcast. Please take a minute to leave a review and don't forget to follow the show, download the episodes, and share with the other MILFs in your life. Listen in on any of the major platforms, including Apple and Spotify, or watch our videos on YouTube. You can join the community on Facebook and Instagram at MILFs Who Pivot Podcast.